In this cold and wintry edition of Speedy Bill, I'm going to be showing you how to install a roll cage in your mx5. Yes, that's right. Today I'm going to be showing you how I install this particular roll bar into my mx5. I picked this one up second-hand off a friend of mine who is no longer using it, so I'm unsure of the brand or if you can even get this particular one anymore. But this one differs from your usual TR lane roll bars, which just sit between the seatbelt towers and brace them that way, in that this one comes down to the floor and connects behind the driver's seat. In my mind, that's a much stronger, much better thing to have. And then it's got your two traditional down stands that connect to the floor of the parcel shelf. My eventual plan with this one is to add door bars to it. I've ordered some GC fabrication ones, I think they're called, from Bowfly Racing. They've not arrived yet, but that's not important for the time being. Normally you can't use door bars with roll cages that come down to the floor because they get in the way of each other, but my plan is to bolt them on or weld them to this roll bar hoop here. Make it all one structure. Those roll bars are well known to increase the structural rigidity of the entire car, so I think that should work pretty well. I've already made a start stripping out the interior because I test fitted this thing yesterday. I've got a bit more to pull out, so let's crack on. So before I can crack on with fitting the roll cage, there's a fair bit of the interior I've got to pull out. I'm going to take out both seats. This is going to make climbing in and out a lot easier, especially when I'm carrying a roll hoop. I'm going to have to remove all the carpeting from the back here, and on the parcel shelf there's a metal plate back here which covers the top of the fuel tank. That has to come off as well. Probably going to have to remove these seat belt pillar trims as well, and peel the carpet up across the floor so I've got access to where the feet of the roll hoops sit. Nothing for it, let's get stuck in. Okay, so once you've finished stripping everything out, this is what you should be left with. I've removed the door trim strip so I could fold the carpet back, so I've got access to where the roll cage will sit on both sides there. This is the metal plate that sits above the fuel tank that I got to remove. That's just held on with a load of 10mm bolts all the way around the outside edge. The reason you have to remove the plastic trims from the seatbelt towers is because some of the bolts hide underneath those. And this will give me access to down in here where the uprights for the roll cage sit. Let's get it in place. Okay, the first thing I'm going to lift into position is the actual main hoop. I've removed the uprights just to make it a lot easier. So in it goes. This will just go either side like this. Sit on the floor here. The one thing I'm noticing I may have trouble with is the chassis rail reinforcer bolt head seems to be in the way, but I should be able to work around those. I want to make sure it's sort of roughly centred. So it'll sit something like that, and it pushed right back up against the firewall. That's sitting level, it's pretty much centred. I will double check all my measurements before I start drilling anything. Next thing I'm going to do is pop one of these uprights in place so that it can stay put without me having to hold on to it. So I'll just push that down in there. Grab enough of my bolt. Push that through. And we'll do the same on the other side. Now, as well as fitting door bars to this roll cage, I will eventually fit a proper harness bar between these two uprights once their position is nailed down. I'm fully aware you're not really supposed to use the factory cabin brace as a harness bar, but I don't take this thing on track, or certainly not yet anyway, so I've not run into any problems with that. Now that this is all bolted in place, we can measure up for marking the floor pan to drill the holes and bolt it down. Sorry about the poor lighting, but here's what we're looking at. This is the foot of one side of the roll cage. And what I mentioned earlier, I've got these Jazz Performance chassis rails under the car. I thought they were going to be a problem. As it turns out, with the roll cage pretty much perfectly lined up even, the second bolt on the opposite side lines up perfectly with the hole for the roll cage foot, so I can actually use that to bolt the thing down. And then I've got these permanently positioned to accept the rest of the bolts. Currently I don't have sandwich plates for the underside of these. It didn't come with any when I got them. I will probably have some made up or make some myself, depending on how much time I've got to fit these properly, because the last thing you want is, if you do flip the car, for the roll bar to rip out of the floor and be less than useless. So I'm going to remove this hoop again, or just push it to one side, take out this bolt here, bolt this down, and then it's permanently positioned so that I can then drill out the rest of these holes. Okay, so after pulling a good deal of semi-unpleasant contortions, especially on that side of the vehicle, because I've only got about half a foot of space, I've managed to get the roll cage bolted through that existing hole. Focus, you bugger. There we go, so it's bolted down on both sides. It's exactly the same on both sides, positioning wise, so I can finish getting those bolted down. Just going to have to drill 2 more holes for each one, bolt them down, and then I can look at these down bars here. Slightly more complex, as we're probably going to struggle for room to get a drill in, but we shall see what we can do. Okay, so I'm ready to drill these holes out. I should probably pilot them first, but I'm going to go straight for the big guns with an 8.5mm drill bit. Let's see how far I get. I'm through the floor of the car, but I'm now down to the aluminium chassis rail underneath, or stainless steel chassis rail. So I'm going to swap over and do this side first before I burn my drill bit out. Okay, so I'm through there. I'm going to now actually pilot drill the stainless steel bit because I'm never going to get through with an 8.5mm drill bit in one go. Here we go. Just polishing it. I think I'm going to have to abandon that one for now, but for the meantime at least I can get the second bolt in. Drop that through. Go, reach under the car and bolt them together. There we go. Getting there, just a couple more to do, and then I'll be ready to look at these down bars. Okie dokie, so I eventually managed to get through the stainless steel chassis rail using various different sized drill bits, taking my time keeping the drill bit cool. So this side is now fully bolted down. The last thing I did was to cut a little relief in the carpet so that it fits around it nicely, keeps it looking neat when everything's back in there. I don't want bolts and things showing through. So I'm going to do the other side and then we can call this hoop done. Right, so I didn't film this, but the next thing I've done is get this one, it's not bolted down yet, I've just put the bolts into position to make sure they all line up. It was a bit of a pain to get the drill bit in there, so what I ended up doing, with these front two holes it wasn't too bad, you can kind of drill them on a bit of an angle, but with these back two ones, with this bit of parcel shelf here, it's more or less impossible to get the drill bit on it. So what I had to do was take my angle grinder and just cut out a little bit of the metal there just so I could get a bit of access to the drill bit. It's not going to affect any of the structural integrity of the vehicle, just makes getting the drill bit in there a little bit easier. The next thing I'm going to do is crawl underneath the car and find the other end of these bolts. Right then, so I've managed to get this one passenger side upright in and bolted in place. It's very strong, very rigid. If we just crawl underneath the car for a second, I can show you exactly where those bolts came out. If we look up in there, just behind the wheel arch liner, you can see the 4 bolts poking through there. It's one of those places where I eventually want to put a sandwich plate, because if the car did roll, they would just rip straight out. Access can be made a lot easier by removing this plastic guard liner. I didn't, I just used a wobble joint on the socket because I'm too lazy. Now all we need to do is the exact same thing on the other side, put the car back together, and that's the roll cage installed. Right then, so when you finish you should end up with something that looks like this. A nice neat install. I've cut all the carpets around the bases of all the mounting points so it all follows that nicely and looks neat. I haven't actually finished installing that far side down bar yet because I can't be bothered to turn the car around. It's cold, it's wet, it's raining. I'd quite like to go home and warm up. So I'm going to leave it here for today. I've just kind of put everything back in place for now so I can see how it looks and so I don't lose everything. I'll return at another day to finish it off. But for the best part at least, that's everything you guys need to know about installing a roll bar in your MX5. Thank you for watching this latest instalment from Speedy Bill. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy the channel and what we're doing. If you like what we're doing, like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook, Speedy Bill and Friends. I'm on Instagram, SpeedyBill92. Obviously there's the YouTube channel, Speedy Bill and Friends. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you get notifications when we upload things. Thanks for all your support, and I'll see you next time. Wet.